Aloha. I'm very honored to be in your presence. Thank you so much for taking the time to come. And it's wonderful to see such a great group in such a nice venue. And thank you. My name is Debbie Ward. And the first time I went to Mauna Kea was in my early 20s. And I went with my father, who was an astronomer. And we went to the top. I was completely stunned with the beauty of the landscape, the feeling of joy that I had when I was there, the feeling of wonder at not only the enormous amount of Hawaiian culture that was evident, and also for me, because I'm a botanist and a horticulturist, the beauty of the plants and the landscape. It was just stunning, absolutely stunning. And when I was around 25 or so, I got to go with Lauren Hill, who was a naturalist extraordinaire and a Hawaiian historian. And I was part of Foster Garden. We went up there and I took some pictures of the mamani, which was dying because it was being eaten by sheep. And there was a real sense of devastation in the lowlands because there was so much grazing and so little care for the mountain. And so I had an attachment to that as well because I had some sadness that the mamani was struggling so much. And as a result, the palila that were living there, that might have been around 3,500 at that time, were having less and less to eat. The palila now only number in about 1,100. So the palila are dying back. But I wanted a photography contest with my picture of Mamani dying, and I called it Mamani and Morning on Mauna Kea. And it sort of struck in my mind that I really needed to come back to Hawaii Island to live for a number of reasons, but one of which was to be closer to Mauna Kea and also to protect it. And I was still in my early 20s, and by the time I finally got here, I was about 32. And I still thought, because my father was an astronomer, that astronomy was a clean industry and that I wanted to establish a dialogue with the astronomers. And so, I organized programs and invited them to come. But I realized that the number of telescopes was expanding on the mountain, and by then there had been 5 new telescopes that had been built that hadn't been permitted, but they'd been built anyway. And there was a sort of groundswell of feeling here that there needed to be some kind of control. Not stopping them, but having a management plan. There was a lot of trash. There was sort of expanded buildings without anybody knowing they were going up until they'd already gone up. Mayor Matayoshi was very upset about the pimples on the mountain. And May Hall, who was a very, very dedicated Sierra Club member, was one of my friends. And the more she talked to me about it, the more concerned I got. And so I sort of educated myself about what some of those problems were. And I worked with the people that were developing the EIS for the mountain. And they had just discovered the Bekiu bug, which is a very extraordinary insect which lives just at the top of the mountain in the old cinder cones. Nowhere else, just in the old cinder cones on top of Mauna Kea. And so it turned out that they had a kind of antifreeze in their blood so that they were able to survive the winters. They were able to eat insects that had flown up and died because of the cold. And I got fascinated with that. And I'm an environmentalist from way back. And so the more I learned about the mountain, the more concerned I became. And so, I would go to hearings and give testimony and all that. That was in my 30s. I still had brown hair. And then around 1996, I met with a group of people, including Hilo, who's now one of the petitioners, and Nelson Ho, who's standing outside, who's one of the very, very early, very important people in protecting Mauna Kea, and I'm so glad he's here tonight. I'd love to introduce him. And so we formed with Holly McEldowney at DLNR and Steve Martin, Steve Martin, sorry. My brain's dead tonight. Anyway, with Fish and Wildlife Service, we formed a group of people to advise the University of DLNR about some of our environmental concerns. And we did that as best we could. And Nelson and Hilo participated in the work to develop a plan because they had worked with the auditor, and the auditor had realized that the management of Mauna Kea was very poor and wrote something like a 70-page report on how the management was really failing. And so we were trying to participate in identifying ways that the management could improve. So we've been in this fight I've been in it since the early 80s, Nelson as well. And we were both young, but we feel now that after the master plan came out, it wasn't a master plan we were very happy with. And I know Thompson, who was on the Board of Regents at the time, refused to sign it. He refused to be part of it. He was very upset. And it said that they wanted to build about 57 more telescopes. Which back in the 80s they had promised they would build 13 and only 13. You can't hear me. Oh my goodness. Okay. I can hear myself really well. So at one time the university said they would build 13 telescopes and no more. And now in 2000 that document that came out said they wanted to build 57. Well, in 2006, the director of IFA went to the legislature and said, oh, no, not that really that many. We're going to recycle them and rebuild on the old footprints. That sounded a little better. But in the meantime, they had wanted to build 8 more telescopes around the kegs. And Nelson and I and several other people had participated in a contested case to bring more information to the decision-making process. And we convinced, and Judge Hara, Glenn Hara, who is the Third Circuit Court judge, agreed with us that there was no management plan. There needed to be a management plan before they could continue. So the NASA pulled the money and the 8 telescopes weren't built. Then there were 4 more telescopes proposed with pan-stars. And a group of people pointed out to the Air Force that the management on Mauna Kea was simply inadequate for that, and they pulled that. But then came along the 30-meter telescope, and we asked for a contested case on the 30-meter telescope. We provided a tremendous amount of information. It's 4 boxes this big of information. And one of the things that we're most concerned about with the permit that was issued is that there are 8 criteria, one of which is no increase in land use intensity in a conservation district. Building an 18-story telescope on 8 acres of land is larger than all the other telescopes put together. It's twice as high as the allowable limit in Hawaii County, which is 90 feet. And this telescope is going to be 886 feet. That's 18 stories high and several stories underground as well. Another criterion on the criteria for allowing a permit is that it will enhance the natural beauty and open space of the conservation district. And an 8-acre, 18-story building does not do that. One of our concerns over the years has been that there have been 6 mercury spills into the uncontained aquifer, which is right below the telescopes and that's the height, the beginning of the aquifer that provides the drinking water for Hawaii Island. So there are a number of, that's just, many spills of hydraulic fluid and oil and other things that happened over the years. They use a lot of poison up there. There are lots and lots of chemicals that are in use at the telescopes. So there are a lot of concerns that have not been addressed. There was a tremendous amount of trash, and some of the work that Nelson did convinced the university that they really needed to clean up the trash. But there's still a lot of trash out there. It's just a little bit less visible at this point. I'd like to invite Nelson to join me if you'd like to. Because Nelson has really been one of the heroes in this work, and I'd like to acknowledge his tremendous efforts on this.
Aloha. I'm so glad you're here getting the message. It's so important that the ohana for Mauna Kea keeps growing. So the work that Avani does, that Deborah Ward does, needs to be amplified and continued. We have a very big event with the 30-meter telescope next Tuesday, planning to start the construction. And I think as you learn more and more about this, you realize how much of a house of cards this astronomy industry is. And it's very industrial. It's very disruptive of the spirit of the summit up there. And I hope that all of you get to experience that and get to actually put your shoulders to bringing it back into balance, because now it is now. So thank you folks very much for your attention.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Aloha. I was wondering if there's any questions so far?
Yes. I heard that the telescope is going to have 4 stories underground, and that it's going to take 5 to 7 years of pounding. Okay, this really upsets me. Whew. Okay, I've heard, I want you to confirm this is true, that there is going to be 4 stories underground. And it's going to take 5 to 7 years, predicted, of pounding the top of the Pico, the mountain, to make those 4 stories underground. That is very, very upsetting to me. That mountain is so sacred. I know the mountain's not going to like it. And so if you could speak about that, please.
When the Keck telescopes were built, the cinder cone was much higher than it is now, and they actually carved off 40 feet in order to make a flat place to put the Keck telescopes. So any of the material there was sort of pushed off on the sides. And so when you drive up there and you see different colors, it's because of material being just sort of discarded on the side. And that was one of the homes of the vacuum bug. So they've actually destroyed about 92 acres of land that once was habitat for the vacuum bug. And in the case of the TMT, there's also vacuum bug habitat there. And in the case of the Subaru, the Subaru went down about 7 stories. So we actually have pictures of the entire pool just sort of dug out for that stuff. When they recycle a telescope, it's not clear whether they will actually take out everything or just make it flat on the surface. But with the TMT, if they ever build it, yes, there will be about 5 to 7 years of construction, and most of it will involve just really flattening the landscape. They'll have to move a lot. They'll have to dig deeper. They'll have to dynamite. They'll have to tow ram. There's some very violent machines that take a lot of work. One of the interesting things is that the geologists that did worked on the EIS for the TMT actually said that there is material as good as the Adspari for making addices there, and that's the hardest material on Earth, and that will have to be destroyed in order to drill into the substrate. So yes, you're right. There's going to be a lot of work. And there will be something like 10 very large trucks going up and down every day, carrying material up and down. We're very concerned about the introduction of invasive species, because there are already invasive spiders, invasive beetles, and if there are any ants brought up to the top and get established, it will basically wipe out the native insects that live there now. So with all those construction trucks going up and down and all the vehicles, I'm very concerned I'm a part of the Office of Mauna Kea Management's Environment Committee, and we have made recommendations as to vehicle washing and inspection before they go up the mountain. And those plans finally, after 14 years after they said they would develop them, they're finally developing them now. They're not in place yet, but they're being developed. It's a plan to plan to plan. But you know, we have set in place some of the things to make the environment safer for Mauna Kea and for the insects and the birds and the other animals that live there. But it's not sufficient. You know, it's still a work in progress. Thanks.
I understand that you also have worked for the university, and what is their connection to this company that wants to put this up?
Well, the university has the master lease, which means that they have a lease on the entire conservation district with the exception of the natural area reserve, which is sort of a pie-shaped thing right in the middle along the road.
Who gave them that?
The DLNR, Department of Land and Natural Resources. And they allowed one telescope back in 1968 on the lease. But now we know that one telescope could mushroom into many. There are actually about 21 in there now, even though they said that they would build no more than 13. And now they want to build another one. And since 2000, they have tried to build 13 more. This is the 13th. And to date, they haven't built any since 2000. So we're making progress, but the university's relationship to the company that wants to build is that the university holds the lease, and it's going to sublease that land to the TMT Corporation, which is set up in Pasadena, California. All the jobs that have been issued so far out of the TMT recently have been in Pasadena, not in Hawaii. It's highly unlikely that there will be very many people hired from Hawaii because all the components are being built elsewhere. Canada, China, India, California, to a certain extent Japan. And so as a result, a very small portion of the workforce will come from here, and a very small portion of the astronomers, if any, will be from here.
And who is the checks and balance system for the university? What is the check and balance?
Well, that's a very good question, because the university appoints the community-based management board, which has no authority, and it also appoints the Kahuku Mauna, which is the Hawaiian Advisory Board, which also has no authority. And they advise the chancellor, and the chancellor advises the president, and the president goes to the Board of Regents. So basically, it's the university and the Board of Regents talking to each other about.
Where is the Board of Regents?
They're appointed by the governor.
So where is OHA in this case? Where is the Hawaiian nation represented in what's happening on the Sacred Mountain?
There is a Hawaiian advisor. His name is Wallace Ishibashi. He was formerly with the union. And he's the cultural advisor for OMCAM. There's also Kahuku Mauna, which is a group of Hawaiian of people who have applied to be on the committee and have been appointed by the university. OHA is supposed to get the revenue from the rent, but the university has never actually paid fair market rent, nor has the LNR ever established what fair market rent should be. So currently the university has, over the last, since 1968, paid $1 a year. $1. And only most recently, just in the last 5 years, I believe, maybe 6, the revenues from the commercial tours that go up, 14 passengers, about 400 people a day, the university gets that revenue and then shares 20% of it with OHA. So in our contested case hearing, we discovered that $308,000 was sitting in the bank, waiting to be sent to OHA, but they hadn't figured out how to transfer the money yet. Then there was a bill passed in the legislature that said any rent from here on out would go back to the university. So none of it goes to DLNR, none of it goes to the, OHA, and it all stays with the university, the rent being paid. So if TNT is ever built and they begin to pay rent, it will go back to the university.
Well, who is the check and balance system for the DLNR? Who is watching them?
Well, the governor appoints the members of the board, and the governor appoints the director, the chair of the board election. So it's basically Governor Abercrombie or whoever will be the next governor.
Okay, so the telescopes that are up there now, how many of them are already obsolete and not being used right now?
Well, that's another interesting question. There are two that are going begging because the former funders have decided they can't fund it anymore. And then there's another one that's non-operative. It's the University of Hawaii Hilo one, because for some reason the parts that were ordered and the parts that actually came didn't fit, and so they've never been able to make it operative. So there are basically three not working. Well, no, I will say not working. The contract for paying for two of them, the currently working ones, is expiring like this month. And Lockheed Martin has been given a contract to run one of them without a lease. So, it's indefinite how long that will be. One of the things that concerned us this week was we found out that because there is concern about the number of people that might show up to maybe not support the TNT at the groundbreaking, is that the university had planned to close the public road, the state road to the top, and only allow their own dignitaries. We wrote a letter of protest and recently submitted that. They have pulled back and said that they won't close the road, but they're still in discussion with the police, so we really don't know for sure what will happen with that. We, as practitioners and as petitioners, are not going to be doing civil disobedience. With Havane and with Kealoha, with Kalani Flores and Pua Case and Ku Ching and Paul Nevis are all part of the petitioners that have asked that the case not, that the TNT not be built. And we've participated in the contested case hearing, and we've also gone to court to take our protest of the permit to court. And so that's being deliberated at the Intermediate Court of Appeals, and our denial of our contested case for the sublease is being deliberated in the Third Circuit Court. So we're having a peaceful worship and ceremony off the land of Mauna that's run by the University of Hawaii at Pu'uhuluhulu. So many of you in this room are going to be participating in that, and we're not doing civil disobedience. We're doing prayerful ceremony and in a very dignified way, so that we feel that we're supporting Mauna Kea in a way that feels good to us. There may be other people who have different ideas, but we are not directing that, we're not communicating with that. So you may see things in the press that may be misleading, so just keep that in mind. Hi.